you, Malcolm. Andy, coming back to yourself, we're talking there, of course, of Tour of Britain. We're also talking about Tour de France. I'm sure there must be concepts in common between the two. How do you sort of view that? And I guess perhaps take bits from either side.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's the bare bones of it right at the very beginning. It is a bike race. Two very, very different bike races. But I don't think there's anybody in the world that hasn't heard of the Tour de France. Unfortunately, the Tour of Britain doesn't quite sort of like, you know, hit the mark as big as the Tour does. But I mean, yeah, I'm constantly always looking at other races and other events and how we can improve our own events. In fact, I can't remember the last time I watched a stage of the Tour de France or any race for that matter, and actually watched the racing rather than what was going on around the riders and how they'd close the roads down or how they've got through a particular section. You know, I've gone are the days where I can sit and enjoy and watch a race. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I think with the Tour de France and the Tour of Britain, you know, there's like the similarities are there. The budgets are hugely different for the Tour de France over than what they are for the Tour of Britain. And of course, you know, we would like to be able to fully replicate the Tour de France over here in the UK, but yeah, financially, it's just not possible. But we do our absolute best, and I think we have a more of a family feel about the Tour of Britain. You know, it's you see the families at the side of the road, you know, and you see the schools absolutely go crazy for it. And as Malcolm said, you know, hearing about the care homes, you know, I've actually never thought about it the way that you explained it, and it was, you know, it's touching. You know, I'm thinking, yeah, you know, these people, you know, they might not have been out of the care home for a couple of years, but you know, they might have been avid skiers, or you know, at Glenshire every year, or you know, other parts of the county, and then you think about it wider, and you think, well, the Isle of Wight, you know, maybe they've been to the Isle of Wight on holiday in the past, and they haven't been able to travel for many years, and it gets to show them parts of the country that they've got amazing memories of. And I've never thought of it that way before, and yeah, it's really struck a chord with me.
Sure. Just on that, I mean, as we've touched on earlier, you're obviously traveling north to south and back to north and back to south again during all the build up. Have you had a chance to pick up on the impact, you know, in the lead up to Tour of Britain in the various areas as you travel through them?
I think, yeah, certainly there's along the way, you know, when we've driven some of the routes, you can see, you know, the excitement building, the banners going up. A couple of regions have gone out and got scrapped bicycles and painted them up and put them in strategic locations and hung, you know, flower pots and things from them, and you know, just generally, you know, on the big build up. Yeah, I think each region does it a little bit differently, but yeah, it's certainly you can feel it, you can see it in shop windows as well, and you know, it's just like you can feel the noise and the buzz from the community, and certainly all the meetings that I have with the stakeholders up and down the length and breadth of the country, you get to hear of the exciting projects that they're doing, again, you know, going back to the care home and the schools and everything. So you get to hear of the exciting projects, and then you get the energy from the people that are behind all of that as well, saying, you know, this is what we're doing, we're getting really excited. And of course, you know, we have the land art competition, and you know, people are getting behind that, and I think for Aberdeenshire as well, I mean, my overwhelming memory of last year, my role on the race, I am one of the last but one motorbikes actually before the peloton. I'm the moto regulator, so I sit on the back of a motorbike, so literally I get to feel the bike race as it's happening, you know, maybe 150 meters behind me. And my overwhelming sort of like memory of Aberdeenshire last year, and because the Shire probably hasn't had an event as large as the Tour of Britain on its roads and free to view, but it was the expression on the children's faces as we were going into villages and, even in rural locations. It was just pure elation that they've never seen anything like it before. And of course, you've got sort of 30 police motorbikes ahead of the race, absolute causing disruption and, wailing horns and sirens. And, that's as much of the excitement as the race itself as well, So but by the time the race actually come, the police have whipped them up into a pandemonium. And so when the race arrives, their faces and the screaming was, it will live with me for a long time, because I kind of guess, I've been doing this for 12 years as my job. I've been in and around cycling like Malcolm for, I think I was since 8 years old. I was racing my bike, so so quite a while. But and you get to, I don't say it gets stale, because it never gets stale, because every day is different. But it's like people that have seen the race before. Yes, they're all still super excited, but I don't think you can take away the moment that a child sees this race for the first time ever. And the looks on their faces were just incredible.
Thank you,
And
Andy.
I think
Sorry, Marie, I was going to say some of that will, I would imagine, ring true perhaps with your own experiences.
Sorry,
I was going to say, forgive me cutting across you there. I would imagine that some of what Andy's saying there perhaps rings true with some of the experiences that you
definitely.
enjoy.
Yeah, and I think the key thing here is the build up. It's involving everyone before, so they feel like what Andy said, stakeholders themselves. So they're not just watching the race; they are part of the race, and I think that's the difference. That's where we get the excitement. It was so difficult not to get smitten by the excitement, and you stand for hours and hours and hours and hours, but you've been a part of it long before it arrives. So it's not just the 15 seconds, it's everything before that. It's the collaboration with the elderly homes, it's the collaborations between the kindergartens and the schools, it's the collaboration between the further education and the lower education, and it cannot be a success without everyone taking part and everyone adding into it, and that's what makes it so much fun.
Sure. Malcolm, coming to yourself there, I mean, both Marie and Andy are talking there about the build-up. We're obviously in the last, as you touched upon, we're now into the 2-week programme as the big day approaches. Do you hear comment there that as that build-up growing?
Yeah, one thing before we comment on that, Andy is right, and he's probably partly responsible. He's changed the way I watch bike races on the television as well. I have to admit, during the Tour de France, and we did exchange emails, I was watching the Tour de France, and instead of looking at racing, I was looking at Marshalls, and I was looking at road furniture, and I was looking at things that I hadn't looked at before, probably. But yeah, we're just obviously today, as we're recording this, this is day one of Cycle Aberdeenshire, but the build-up, as I say, started very much just after Easter, when we went to the schools with our programme and said, this is coming in September, here are some resources to start working on early on. And again, the response to that simple piece of work with the flag and jersey designs just showed that initial response. So we're expecting a busy 2 weeks. The practical delivery of cycling sessions through our outdoors team within Live Life Aberdeenshire will give that actual, the kids a chance to be out on their bikes, getting some extra instruction and just building up that enthusiasm. The key bit for me, again, I keep going back to legacy, is that we have to make sure that as we move forward, that those experiences aren't wasted, and that is done through work with local cycling clubs and with Scottish Cycling to make sure that moving forward that young people who want the opportunity to potentially cycle competitively or simply to have access to a local cycling club to feel more confident in using a bike. And certainly the work we're doing in Huntly, which is obviously the school in Huntly is linked to Marie's school. They have a fantastic active travel plan, as we have in many parts of Aberdeenshire, and clearly active travel is something that's very prominent worldwide at the moment in terms of trying to encourage that. So we have different angles. As Andy said at the start, it is a bike race, but what we've done is taken the bike race and used it as a vehicle to try and deliver a lot of other aspects. So active travel being one, the STEM, that scientific, engineering, aspect, which is very, very important for the northeast of Scotland. Many of our industries, again, probably similar to Denmark, rely on pupils coming out of school, not so much maybe through university, but even just coming out with the practical knowledge of some of these subjects. So understanding science, understanding maths, technology, to go into the different industries that support the northeast economy. So by linking cycling to that, it's given us a different avenue into schools, and allowing them the chance to use these new resources. The club connections is very important though, because that takes us right into the heart of the cycling community. Some of those cycling community are helping us to make sure that the race moves through certain towns safely, and they're putting forward their own time to volunteer as marshals, and to help us out. Going back to the schools again, I know that we've got a group of pupils at the school I work at in Inverurie who are really excited because they are drama pupils and they're going to be coming out to help us to deliver 2 events. One is the big event, which is called Bike Blethers. So for the translation, that is bike conversations, Marie. So we're going to have that conversation with Neil and Laura Fahy about their careers as Olympic world champions, and Neil most recently is Commonwealth champion at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. And obviously the discussions about their careers, but also a focus on parasport. But those pupils are coming in from a drama background and will help us to deliver that event. So it's a staged event within a local town hall. It's not a huge production, but it's still got the same technical side. So we're giving those pupils a chance to have a practical experience of working with our sound and technician staff within Live Life Aberdeenshire to deliver that. And they'll also help the following day with another Q&A session we're doing, slightly lower level, but another one, and there's got some links to some professional cyclists as well. So it's just all those practical opportunities. And when we start, and I mean, we spoke at the start, about the how big the Tour of Britain is worldwide in terms of its social media coverage, and that's, I think, where we'll start to see not just the build up but retrospective for us. We've got so many stories to tell after the Tour of Britain. We're doing a lot of work in the build up, but we have got probably weeks and weeks and weeks of things that we can speak about. This being one example of what we're recording today, a resource that can be used within a classroom setting, for the pupils to listen to, 3 people who are involved in delivering the events. Obviously from the community side in Denmark, my role very much community, but also straddling across to helping Andy from the practical side in terms of making sure the race goes through, along with a huge amount of colleagues. And that is you can sense the excitement building up within some of the meetings about the Tour of Britain. So the high level meetings, the safety meetings, there's lots of serious things to be discussed, but you can sense an excitement there because everybody knows it's coming, and I think everybody is just looking forward to it arriving. And who knows when it'll come back again, but hopefully in the next 2 weeks I'll deliver a programme that convinces Sweet Spot in the future that the North East is a place to come back and visit again with another stage at some point in the future.
Thanks, Malcolm. Andy, you spoke of 12 years in the job. The start date is fast approaching. Nervous excitement despite all these years in the role?
Of course, there's always nervous excitement. I mean, it's a bit weird, it's like you start your work starts coming into your dreams a little bit, and not sleepless nights. I think my sleepless nights were maybe sort of 12 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, when a lot of the bits and pieces that I have to do to get the race legally allowed to happen, those deadlines are long past now. So we're really happy that everything is in place for the race day, and we'll just deal with what's put in front of us on the day now. But it's of course it's nervous excitement. I mean, you've picked up on it. It is my passion. There's not too many people that can say that they can work in their passion. And it's like I left school with probably less than average GCSEs, it has to be said. And I've just worked my way sort of like through life, and just I learn it. I still say every day is a school day. I learn something new every day, and I think that is true in every walk of life. And it's just, taking what you've learned, taking it forward, and and applying it into my everyday life and my everyday work life. I didn't, as much as I've been a cyclist all my life, my working industry before I left, I worked in the city for a major law firm. I worked in their IT department, and I'd worked in the city for maybe 20 years, and an opportunity came along, and I grabbed it, and yeah, so here we are 12 years later. So I must be doing something okay.
It's still going strong.
Yeah.
Marie, we're so pleased you could join us. And does the conversation that we've had, does that reinvent what you've just enjoyed and the impact that it had on your school and in your area?
Yeah, I'm excited for you. And I've got to say, you asked about the tourism aspect as well. I would watch Tour of Britain just to watch out where I want to go revisit. So there's definitely that aspect as well. And Andy, I think you will have a lot of young pupils in people in Aberdeenshire wanting your job.
Yeah. They're welcome to it at times. I mean, you mentioned about tourism, and the tourism is because you see the same people at the side of the road every day, and because it's all within the UK, and a lot of Europeans come over. Bike racing is pretty much bred into European culture. And you'll see these people, and people come over and have the holiday around the Tour of Britain, because it's, as much as we go to some, really sort of like holiday hotspots within the UK, we also go to areas that you probably wouldn't normally go to. And it's nice to see these people. We've met people from sort of France, Holland, Belgium, Italy, Austria, you name it. They've all been there, camped up, waving their flags every day, and it's amazing to see. And it is a postcard, it's a live postcard that
Sometimes
you're
all we need is the inspiration.
Yes.
To find out, where else to go other than the main cities.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
It's exactly that. And then, obviously, having worked in the industry for many years, it's like you speak to the riders themselves, and this goes back to something you said right at the beginning of the conversation. The riders haven't got a clue where they're riding through, and they don't see it. We'll take.
They're working.
Exactly. Let's take the Suey for a prime example, Malcolm. That they're going to get to the top of the Suey. They're not going to get a chance to sit at that bench and look back across the Shire and think, God, we've just ridden up this. They're going to be clicking down the gears and zooming down the other side before they know it. And it's a shame.
But it's part of that legacy. And it's funny, I was out, must have been about a month ago, I was out just for a gentle ride one Sunday morning, and I went along just a short piece of last year's stage, not far from Inverurie. And I think I looked back later on in Strava, and the difference in my speed, I think I was riding at 23, 24 miles an hour with a nice tailwind for a change in Aberdeenshire. And I was looking at the speeds of the peloton last year as they headed towards Castle Fraser, and it was 32 miles an hour. But I think that is the legacy. So for Suey, there'll be lots of cyclists locally crying when they see some of their Stravas disappearing in 2 weeks' time. But they will equally use that for years to come as a marker to say, well, this is the speed that such and such rode up, and they'll try and get as close as they can to it. The Suey, for example, is part of a wider programme in Aberdeenshire called Aberdeenshire Ascents, where we have 10 local climbs across the authority that people can go and ride. And one lady did actually ride all 10 in one day recently, but it's again linked to that tourism angle, but also encouraging